Imagine a world where a single mistake could cost you your life, where the air was thick with the unseen presence of spirits, both good and evil, and where the night sky held secrets that could predict your fate. This was the world of medieval Europe, a time when the line between reality and superstition was often blurred, and the fear of the unknown loomed over every aspect of daily life. In this era, a man named Count Fulk the Black of Anjou lived a life so dark and filled with sin that it would make even the bravest shudder. For 20 years, he committed crimes so heinous that they became the stuff of legend. Among his many sins was the murder of his wife, a crime he claimed was justified because he caught her in an act of adultery with a goatherd. Despite the lack of evidence and the disappearance of the goatherd, Count Fulk's word was enough to clear him of the charge. After all, counts, even wicked ones, did not lie, or so they believed. But the weight of his sins eventually caught up with him. Conscience-stricken and fearing for his immortal soul, Fulk sought divine mercy. The sentence he received was as harsh as it was extraordinary. He was ordered to make a triple pilgrimage to Jerusalem, a journey that would cover 15,300 miles and take him across most of France, over the Alps, through the Papal States, Carinthia, Hungary, Bosnia, Serbia, Bulgaria, Constantinople, and the mountains of Anatolia, down through modern Syria and Jordan to the Holy City. Shackled and in irons, he made this journey 3 times, enduring unimaginable physical and emotional torment. On his final trip, he was dragged through the streets on a hurdle, while 2 strong men lashed his naked back with bullwhips. One might wonder what this brutal punishment had to do with the teachings of Jesus Christ. The answer is very little. Despite calling themselves Christians, the people of medieval Europe were largely ignorant of the Gospels. The Bible was written in Latin, a language that few could read, and the lengthy, mumbled incantations of the Mass were incomprehensible to most. Instead, their beliefs were steeped in superstition and folk magic, practices that were often endorsed by the clergy. For example, when a lady died, her servants would rush through the manor house, emptying every container of water to prevent her soul from drowning. Before her funeral, the body was closely watched to prevent any dog or cat from crossing the coffin, a belief that such an act would turn her remains into a vampire. Meanwhile, her husband would lie prostrate, his arms stretched out in the form of a cross, praying for her salvation. None of these practices were supported by the New Testament, but they were deeply ingrained in the culture and had the blessing of the Church. Superstitions and fears about the afterlife were common. People believed that if a corpse's left eye did not close properly, the deceased would soon have company in purgatory. Wearing a clean white shirt on a Friday, seeing a shooting star, a will-o', the wisp in the marshes, or a vulture hovering over one's home were all seen as omens of death. Similarly, a woman who washed clothes during Holy Week, or a group of 13 people dining together at one table, would soon face tragedy. Comets and eclipses were considered extremely ominous, and the sighting of a comet in July 1198 was believed to have foretold the death of Richard the Lion-Hearted, who actually died in April 1199. The air was believed to be filled with invisible spirits, some benevolent but most malevolent. These spirits included the souls of unbaptized infants, ghouls who roamed graveyards, water nymphs who lured knights to their deaths, drakes who kidnapped children, wolfmen, and vampires. At any moment, a person could be transported to a realm of magic and occult powers. Even natural objects were thought to possess supernatural qualities, and books interpreting dreams were highly popular. The stars were believed to be guided by angels, and doctors often consulted astrologers and theologians when diagnosing illnesses. Guy de Chauliac, a renowned surgeon, wrote that being wounded in the neck when the moon was in Taurus was particularly dangerous. People suffering from scrofula, a disease characterized by swollen lymph nodes, believed that their condition could be cured by the touch of a royal hand, leading them to mob the kings of England and France. Epidemics were attributed to unfavorable celestial alignments, and quacks who claimed to cure ailments with spurious charms often went unchallenged. Despite the pervasive fear and superstition, life in medieval Europe was not without moments of joy and community. On the Sabbath, after an early Mass, peasants would gather to gossip, dance, sing, wrestle, and compete in archery contests, often until the evening shadows deepened. For them, the struggles of daily life were enough to contend with, and the threats of the afterlife, while real, were often pushed to the back of their minds. In this world of medieval Europe, the line between the natural and the supernatural was thin. The teachings of Jesus Christ, while present, were often overshadowed by a rich tapestry of superstition and folk belief. Count Fulk the Black's journey, while extreme, was a reflection of the deep-seated fears and the lengths to which people would go to seek absolution and salvation in a world where the unknown was ever present and terrifying.